From the director of Time Bandits and 12 Monkeys comes the adventure of Don Quixote.
Cut. What's going on? I've been fantasizing this for a very long time.
He gets tangled and off his horse.
The budget is half the money we need.
They'll be on things so they can walk down.
Captain Chaos is completely in his element.
Really violent.
This film is in complete disarray.
We've got costumes and sets, but no actors. I've got an actor. I have an actor.
Roll camera. The horse is about to move. Come on, horse. Come on, horsey. Cut!
A very strange weather today.
There's a large bunch of lightning about to hit us.
Everything that can go wrong goes wrong.
Yes!
Nobody seems to be in control of anything.
We can't make the film. It's not the film you want to make.
DOS, director on set. You fiddle with the fish.
What were you thinking?
There's the trailer for the film right there. Coming soon.
And cut it!
Lost in La Mancha is a documentary unique in many ways. Directed by American filmmakers Keith Fulton and Luis Pepe in 2002, it was originally intended to serve as the making-of for the film The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. However, the production quickly descended into chaos, and although the film was ultimately never completed, the behind-the-scenes footage was still compiled, deemed relevant for the general public. Lost in La Mancha chronicles part of the pre-production process, the first and only days of shooting, and the weeks that followed between the suspension of production and its eventual cancellation. The intended film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, was to be a loose and modern adaptation of Miguel de Cervantes' literary masterpiece, a dream project Terry Gilliam had been pursuing for decades. The documentary reveals the inner workings of a film production, a fascinating theme in itself, but above all, it showcases how a production can spiral into disaster. Unlike the typical making-of documentaries, often included in DVD bonus features, this film captures the action in real time, giving it a raw and realistic feel. It is interspersed with interviews, and notably, the interviewees are strikingly frank. They do not adopt a false optimism or cheerfulness, instead openly admit when things are going wrong and share their doubts and fears. We will explore how the documentary provides insight into the creative process behind filmmaking, identify the factors that led this particular production to failure, and analyze the documentary's symbolic significance. But first, we must briefly introduce the two central figures we follow during its 1 hour and 33 minute runtime, Terry Gilliam and, of course, Don Quixote. Terry Gilliam is an American-born filmmaker, naturalized British citizen, born in 1940 in Minneapolis. After working as an illustrator for various magazines worldwide, he joined the British comedy troupe Monty Python, achieving international fame in the 60s and 70s through their sketch show Monty Python's Flying Circus, and later through films like Holy Grail and The Life of Brian. Subsequently, Gilliam became known as a director of films such as Brazil and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. However, his career was not without challenges. He earned a reputation as the unluckiest filmmaker in cinema history, particularly due to his struggles with the Don Quixote project. One such attempt became immortalized in the documentary Lost in La Mancha. Don Quixote, unquestionably the most famous character in Spanish literature, is the protagonist of El ingenioso hidalgo Don Quixote de la Mancha, written by Miguel de Cervantes and published between 1605 and 1615. This work is both a parody of chivalric romances and a social satire of medieval Spain's rigid and absurd norms. Don Quixote is an old man enamored with tales of chivalry, who sets out to live his own adventures, accompanied by his squire, Sancho Panza. In his stubbornness and madness, he famously battles windmills he mistakes for threatening giants, in a passage that has become iconic. It is likely that the absurdity of this story resonated with Terry Gilliam, whose cinematic worlds often exude a similar sense of madness. Yet Don Quixote also carries profound philosophical significance, addressing timeless themes that solidify Cervantes as a perennial author. Originally intended as a making-of, Lost in La Mancha retains its instructive and documentary essence, offering a glimpse into how the film, any film in fact, comes to life. The audience is immersed in a complex creative process, carried by dynamic editing that portrays a seemingly choreographed chaos. The documentary underscores that the creation of a feature film is far from a simple decision made by producers. It requires substantial resources, funding, actors, and extensive preparation before the film can reach the audience. Realizing that his Hollywood film would be made without Hollywood, Terry Gilliam turned to Europe, where the production would surpass anything previously attempted on the continent in terms of ambition and budget. During the 1990s and 2000s, the European film industry wanted to compete with Hollywood blockbusters dominating in international markets. This era saw the rise of films like The Fifth Element in 1997 by Luc Besson, which relied on American stars and international crews. But with producers backing out at the last minute, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote had a tight budget of $32 million. In the documentary, the central role of the director becomes evident, especially for someone like Terry Gilliam, with his distinct personality and bold ambitions. Gilliam emerged as both the visionary and at times the tyrant, yet consistently loyal to his trusted collaborators. We see him meticulously planning camera shots, sketching storyboards, conducting tests for specific scenes, such as one featuring giants, and closely supervising the creation of costumes, practical effects, and puppetry. The location scouting led the team to arid regions of Spain, chosen as the filming location to place the camera amid landscapes that had directly inspired Cervantes in writing his literary masterpiece. A significant portion of the technical crew was Spanish, which led to communication challenges, as Gilliam did not speak Castilian and many of the crew members did not speak English. The documentary also shows the horses being trained for their roles. Finally, the lead actors, Johnny Depp and Jean Rochefort, make their appearances, with their initial costume tests proving particularly promising. The storyboards, models, and early tests are prominently featured throughout the film, constantly reminding viewers of the initial project's rich visual ambition. Terry Gilliam, nicknamed Captain Chaos in the documentary, is renowned for his iconoclastic and visually inventive works, such as 12 Monkeys in 1995, whose production was also documented by Kate Fulton and Luis Pepe in their film The Hamster Factor. Gilliam sees the world through his unique lens and refuses to compromise, making his film shoots notoriously challenging. Despite the complexity of his production, his films were generally successful except for his previous work, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, whose production was chaotic and which was a commercial failure, with $46 million of budget for only $8 million in revenue. Although he took some pride in his reputation as Hollywood's enfant terrible, Terry Gilliam needed to restore his image in the eyes of producers. Unfortunately, the trajectory of his ambitious adaptation of Cervantes has only made things worse. Nearly every aspect of the film's production turned into a catastrophe. First, the exterior sets faced significant challenges. The sound environment was constantly disrupted by the noise of fighter jets flying over the nearby military training area. Additionally, a devastating storm struck the desert, flooding and damaging some of the equipment and transforming the landscape into lush greenery, completely altering the arid terrain seen in the initial shots. Lighting conditions also became too dark to film without artificial assistance. The interior sets were no better. The Madrid studio revealed significant soundproofing issues that hindered production. On the acting front, the early stages were complicated as the cast was scattered across different countries and had only a short window to commit to the project. However, it was one actor in particular who ultimately caused the project to collapse: Jean Rochefort, cast as Don Quixote himself. Prolonged back pain made it impossible for him to ride a horse, which severely impacted his performance. His frequent hospital visits kept him away from the set. While the first half of the documentary portrays a series of reparable setbacks, the second half shows a production team left immobilized, unsure how to proceed in the absence of their lead actor. Guillaume refused to consider recasting Don Quixote, given how difficult it had been to find the perfect actor, and out of respect for Rochefort, who had deeply committed to the role. Vanessa Paradis, meanwhile, never made it to the set. Her only appearance in the documentary is during her costume fitting. The final hurdles came in the form of conflicts between Guillaume, the producers, and the insurers regarding the handling of financial losses and the rights to the screenplay. Crisis meetings are being held. Throughout the documentary, the audience, as privileged witnesses to this disaster, experiences a roller coaster of emotions: hope, frustration, laughter, and ultimately sadness. The film never bore us, thanks to the dynamic and inventive direction and editing by Keith Fulton and Luis Pepe. Their creative choices, notably featuring animated segments, make the documentary subjective, though the mishaps and final outcome are undeniably real. What unfolds before us is a slow death, a film within a film that died before it could even be born. The title of this unmaking of, Lost in La Mancha, symbolizes both a physical and moral loss. La Mancha, the metaphorical space and emblematic setting of Don Quixote's universe, becomes the stage for a collective disillusionment, where Terry Gilliam's dreams crumble under the weight of successive catastrophes. But it must be admitted that the title, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, would have suited the documentary just as well. It is ironically fitting that an adaptation of Don Quixote became one of the most famous non-films in global cinema, as the literary work itself already explores themes of illusion and disillusionment. In Hollywood, Don Quixote is often deemed unfilmable, with every attempt, most famously by Orson Welles, ending in failure. Guillaume, in turn, becomes a fictional character himself, a tragic hero trapped by his own imagination. Terry Gilliam and Don Quixote share a central trait: their refusal to surrender in the face of failure. Both embody an idealistic vision of the world, where imagination triumphs over material constraints. Like Cervantes' Hidalgo, Guillaume battles modern-day windmills, insurers, weather conditions, and budgetary limitations. His outsized ambition represents the tension between pure creativity and the pragmatic realities of filmmaking, between individual vision and collective constraints. Terry Gilliam's failure with Lost in La Mancha transcends the initial disaster to become an enduring example of artistic perseverance. This aborted project, far from fading into obscurity, transformed into a myth through the documentary by Keith Fulton and Luis Pepe. Their film immortalizes not only the misfortunes of a troubled production, but also the unyielding passion of an artist in the face of adversity. The Man Who Killed Don Quixote becomes a cinematic legend, a symbol of the limits of human ambition and the inherent beauty of the quest, even when unfinished. After many additional attempts, with actors such as Ewan McGregor and John Hurt, Terry Gilliam finally succeeded in making his film in 2018, with Adam Driver and Jonathan Pryce in the lead roles. However, conflict with the producer nearly prevented the film from being released in theaters, cementing its status as a cursed project to the very end. Despite this achievement, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote went relatively unnoticed, struggling to compete with the myth surrounding Lost in La Mancha. Keith Fulton and Luis Pepe also documented the successful production of this final version, resulting in a film titled He Dreams of Giants. This documentary offers a poignant conclusion to a decades-long quest.